So excited to have this next fighter on the show for the very first time, joining a list of many top contenders and UFC champions on a 5-fight win streak in the UFC featherweight division out of the great fighting state of Pennsylvania, Mr. Patrick Sabatini. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you for having me, brother.
My pleasure. So do you like to go by Pat more or Patrick, or does it not matter?
You just call me Pat. That's fine.
Sounds good, Pat. All right, and let me ask my producer, am I not going to be able to see him, Doctor? Or, because I'm not seeing, we're still seeing that. All right, we'll do a little switch here, some technical challenges, and we'll continue talking while my producer does that, Pat. So I'm excited to have you on here, man. I've been watching your career for a while, and you're on a great 5-fight win streak, man. You seem like a great guy. You're over there, Philly tough, pretty much. I guess on one website it shows you from what, Bristol or Pennsylvania, or what's the city? It's not Philly, but it's something near there, right? Oop. All of a sudden we have no sound for you, Pat. See what happened. Pat, can you hear me? Okay, I think you're probably hearing me, but for some reason we're getting no sound on you. Doc, that has to be on his end, right? Okay, so my producer checked. We're hardwired here. Pat, do you think anything got pulled out, or let me ask my producer, Adam, what do you think could have happened that could have killed his sound? He doesn't know. Oh, okay. Pat, I think my producer says something went out on our end. I apologize. This normally does not happen. You can ask our mutual friend Jason. We're usually smooth, 100% slick. I appreciate your patience, but yeah, so we're going to try to make sure we have the sound, because that's a key thing, because not all of us can read lips. In fact, most of us can't. So I appreciate your patience, bro. So as we are working to get the sound, do you think we should probably do a callback situation? Okay, so do you want him to call us or we call him, Doc? We'll call you. Why don't we disconnect, Pat? We'll call you. We'll get the sound right back. Awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate all you guys watching. This is rare that this happens. Can you hear me, Pat?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Beautiful. Appreciate your patience on that, man.
Of course. No problem, bro.
Cool. So we were talking about what city you're from originally in Pennsylvania, because it's near Philly, but it isn't Philly proper, right?
Yes, it's Bristol, Pennsylvania. It's about 20 minutes north of Philly. So Philly's very close.
Beautiful. I've heard of Bristol, Connecticut, but not Bristol, Philadelphia, Bristol, Pennsylvania, rather. What's that like?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because I think in my first fight in the UFC, they were mentioning Bristol, Connecticut, and then they had to make adjustments. Bristol, Pennsylvania. It's a small town, it's right on the border of Jersey, and grew up there, love the town, great people, close-knit community, and I have a lot of support there.
Very cool. Now let me throw out a question first. I'm thinking, I always like to come up with really good questions. That's something I'm known for, not only with the interviews on our show for 5 years, but at UFC post-fight press conferences. When we show up, we take pride in asking the questions that elicit great responses, and also some interesting questions that are not asked. So here's a question that I will promise you've not been asked by any show, podcast, ESPN, nothing before, and it's a little bit silly, but we'll do it anyway. Which professional athlete had a lot of success in the last 30 years, and in which sport that had the last name Sabatini?
You know what? I think I know this. It was a tennis player, right?
That's right. That's the sport. You got 1 out of 2, and that's impressive, because I know this is probably right about when you were born. And but that's probably, you probably won't guess the name or the gender, or can you?
Gabriella.
That's it. You didn't just look. You didn't just look somewhere, did you? I don't think so, because I was looking at you. Look straight on forward. You got it. Nice. I think she was like an Argentinian Italian or something like that. Beautiful girl way back in the day. Probably no relation, right?
Yeah, no relation. The only reason I know that too is somebody actually asked me that before, if I was related. And I was like, no. And I looked it up, and sure enough, a lot of pages came up for her, and her tennis career. It was awesome.
Absolutely. So also, I think you turned a light that actually made it very dark where you are. I think you were trying to do the opposite, and then it actually made it dark. If you can't change it, that's okay. I don't want to try to cause you to do all kinds of different stuff, because we can still see you. It just looks like you're in a dark room.
Yeah, let me try to work on it. Right.
No problem. And if you can't, it's no huge deal. It's not the worst. We've talked to people in their cars and other stuff, and you know. But while you're doing that, and if you can't change it, hey, beautiful, that's better. Wait, okay, yeah, good, sweet, perfect, love it. It's changing. It seems like it's like flickering, but that's fine. You're good. So, all right, let's talk some MMA. So in Philly, a lot of guys from Philly have trained together, even though they were on different teams. Because like I think Paul Felder is a Philly guy, but then he went over and trained at Duke Rufus's in Wisconsin for many years. But then yet I've heard he and a lot of you Philly guys have trained together. Can you tell me where are Philly guys training together? Because I don't know of any really big gyms in Philly. And have you trained with Paul Felder? And what are the names of some of the other guys that maybe have been at different gyms but have actually trained together with other guys from around Philly?
Of course, it's basically Daniel Gracie and Coach John Marquez, and they coach like myself. Paul Felder has trained with them. Sean Brady. Andre Petrosky, and I'm sure you probably saw his fight. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Jeremiah Wells.
Right. Absolutely. Definitely some amazing guys. And so you personally trained with all those guys a little bit?
Absolutely.
Nice. What an amazing team. Felder's doing a great job on the mic and had an amazing career. The other guys are doing great. Sean Brady obviously is killing it. You're killing it. Brady's at 155, right? One division above you, or am I wrong?
No, he's 170.
That's right. Okay. And did you see when he went over in that grappling matchup against Craig Jones? That was a trip. Now, in that card, they had the submission-only experts not be able to do leg locks. And it makes sense, because in reality, there's not enough money in submission grappling to make a UFC fighter or Dana White want you guys to risk breaking your leg. It makes sense. No one can put that down, right?
I believe I definitely agree with it, but I think you're allowed leg locks, but just not heel hooks specifically.
You could be right, because I know in jiu-jitsu, I'm not like a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, but I'm a purple belt hoping one day to get to brown and my body doesn't break down. I'm an older guy, so I may never get there. But I know that I may be wrong. I feel that like in some of the matches there was no leg locks at all, but I could be wrong. But I know that because Craig Jones, that's his thing, right? And I know Craig Jones is not Gordon Ryan. We've actually had Gordon on the show, as well as Marcus Almeida, Pachecha, Mason Fowler, some really good dudes there. And but I know that like in that fight, along with the Danielle Kelly against Carla Esparza fight, we had Carla on the show. I'm pretty sure it was no leg locks at all. Now, question for you: when that rule is in there, stopping the submission only experts from using like their go-to bread and butter technique, probably the UFC fighters realize that if that provision wasn't there, it'd be a much more dangerous matchup, right?
I agree, but one thing I will say, particularly about Sean's match, like Sean, like obviously there is a bias because I am Sean's teammate and everything. Right. He is a different animal, man. He even in that match, I don't think Craig was even able to get under him at all, or in any opportunities to even get to his leg.
Yeah. He's supposed to be strong. I think, like he said, when he went up against Michael Chiesa was saying, "Man, you're strong." So yeah, I can imagine Brady. Brady is really good, and even though you're two weight divisions apart, you probably can give each other some good looks sometimes, right?
Oh, dude, he's on another level, man.
Definitely makes it tough when someone just as good as you is 2 weight divisions higher. But iron sharpens iron, man. That's one of the cool things about it. And that was a really, really good fight for, you know, and I guess he had started out kind of grappling in that organization and wanted to come back. So that was cool. And I wasn't trying to take anything away from them, you know, but you know, a lot of the submission guys and girls are looking at MMA, and it seems like a few are now with one championship. I know you got Gary Tunnon over there, and he competes at featherweight, right?
Yes, I believe so.
What would you think of an MMA match with Gary Tunnon if he was in the UFC? I'm sure you'd take it in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, you know, I don't say no to anybody. You know, just if my coaches give me the thumbs up, I'm all in for whoever, man.
You think if Gary Tunnon was in the UFC, he could win some fights, or you think it'd be difficult?
Oh no, absolutely. Gary Tunnon is an amazing athlete, super tough fighter. You know, he could pose a problem to anybody.
And then you got Danielle Kelly, who just signed over there at 1. I think she'll do good. They got some interesting fighters, some good fighters over there. And then, but UFC is killing it, man. So many great events. So one of the things that I noticed about you, and I've been following fights, honestly, I was watching fights with my dad when I was like 6 years old. And you know, right? So it doesn't put me on the level as someone like yourself who watched, did it, and trained and is a professional. So I never try to fool myself as far as that. But the fact that I've been a fan for so long, I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I trained Muay Thai, I trained some traditional karate. I'm still absolutely not putting myself up with someone like yourself. But as far as for someone that's not a pro, having watched for so many years and trained, I do feel good about my perspective, because to an extent I know what it feels like, right? And you know, a minor extent. So what I'm leading up to is that over the years, I've seen some fighters win fights by just showing a lot of tenacity and a lot of mental strength and fortitude, right? And I recognize that in some fighters, but it usually takes several fights for it to be repeated for me to kind of say, okay, this guy looks like she's got some chops. And so I've seen that from you. You know, I remember there's several other fighters we've had on the show. The other one that comes into mind is Marlon Chito Vera, Matt Semmelsberger, you know, just some really mentally strong guys that you know are going to go out there and either win, or if you lose, it'll be barely. You're not going to get smoked. You're not going to get embarrassed. You're not going to get completely annihilated. And what is it that allows you to be on that level? So many guys want to get in the UFC and they can't even get in because they get smashed by the time they get up into some other organizations. Then guys get into UFC and so many of them get absolutely annihilated, and then they're out. And then some guys are in the UFC, but it's win 1, lose 1, win 2, lose 2. How do you get to be a guy who's in there killing it like you? How can you constantly be, you know, better than your opponents and not go in there and get hurt and get caught and get smashed and knocked cold or submitted?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the compliment, brother. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. You deserve it.
Honestly, I always keep a student's mentality, and I always stay humble in victory and defeat. There's always something to learn. There's always someone out there, you know, that is better in every aspect. That's how I look at this, and it keeps me hungry. It keeps me motivated to learn, and I know I'll never be a finished product, but I want to strive to be as best as I could be. And I just feel like this is the beginning for me. Like, I feel like I have a long way to go. I feel like I've come a long way, but I still have a very long way to go. And I just, every fight camp, it's me versus the person in the mirror. The opponent never really matters. It's me versus me. I just want to be better for every fight that I approach. I want to be better than I was for the last fight, and that keeps me motivated. Makes
sense. So where do you train? And I know you mentioned the team, I think, before, but remind us and tell us who's normally there working with you, and if it's not a secret, who's working with you for this camp.
Of course. So I split my training up between Marquez MMA, Team Daniel Gracie, NPR Endurance, and Jonathan Webb's Webb Fitness and MMA. A lot of good guys there. Guys I've been training with for years. And I truly believe in my coaches. If they tell me I need to work on this, I need to work on that. We go way back. They've seen me on my worst days, my best days, and I wouldn't want to go to battle with anybody else in my corner.
Absolutely. So let's go into your athletic background. A lot of guys started out with wrestling. Some started out with like karate or kickboxing. Some were playing football. Where did it start? Go back to like maybe junior high or something, and maybe give us the more exciting, interesting points. You don't have to tell us what you had to lunch or you had different girlfriends in high school. Not that you were going to, but give me a little bit about the progression and succession of which sports you were involved in, starting, let's say, in junior high school or whenever you started.
Sure thing. So basically, when I was like 5 or 6, I was getting bullied in school, and my parents put me into karate, which was like Tang Sudo. Mm-hmm. And I was doing that probably up until the age of 9 or 10. Then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which my old instructor, Tom McGonigal, he started training with the Machado brothers, like Higa Machado. Mm-hmm. So that kind of introduced me to Jiu-Jitsu, fell in love with Jiu-Jitsu. And I didn't get into wrestling till like 14 or 15 years old. Did that all through high school. And in high school, I got involved with like the boxing, kickboxing, and had my first amateur fight when I was 17 for MMA. And I wrestled in college for 2 years. Then I got into combat sambo, which was awesome. I got to travel all over the place, learn from people in the East, from like Russia, Kazakhstan.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was really, really cool experience. It definitely helped tie, everything together. But from like age 17 till I think like 22, I had my like amateur career, and I turned pro at 23.
Nice. It's just everything was at such a good time to be good and to be solid when you're young like that. You know what I mean? And I think that's almost like a perfect sweet spot at 23 with all that experience you had to start your pro career, because right away, like you kind of knew what was coming, more than some young guys who just somehow have a couple of amateur fights and have just a wrestling background or just played football. So it seems like you really had that preparation. It's interesting that you were in combat sambo, going to Russia and all those Eastern Bloc countries. That's definitely a baptism by fire there, because those guys are tough. That's something that I think that you have as well, and Sean Brady has as well. That is just that toughness and that grittiness. And I know that's definitely helped. Were there ever any periods of time, because no one has every single fight go their way, especially when they're in their teens and and you're doing amateur fights and you're a combat sambo. Were there ever any fights that just went so bad that you felt like saying, man, maybe I must not be good enough at this. Maybe I ought to just dump this before I get all my teeth knocked out and my nose broken, because I don't think I'm that good based on this fight. Did anything like that ever happen?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it was like 6 fights ago. I ended up dislocating my elbow and my right shoulder in a fight. It was in the first minute of the first round, and it was a fight that could have potentially put me in the UFC in front of a home crowd. And man, when I really did think it was over, and right after that happened, I entered a little bit of a dark period of time. But the people around me, my coaches, my girlfriend, my parents, my good friends, they lifted me up when I was down. I kind of went in with a new focus, and I since then, I've been on the 5-fight winning streak, and got my chance to get into the UFC. And moving before every fight, I kind of watch that video of that happening to me, and it kind of gives me motivation.
I like it. Makes sense, because I think it is true. The majority of spiritual growth is attained through adversity, is it not?
Absolutely, absolutely. Through tragedy.
Absolutely, and it made you stronger. So let me ask you, in a fight, one of the things I think people love to see in a fight is a back and forth fight. And I know ever since I was really young watching boxing, I never, no one wants to see one guy just beating the shit out of the other guy unless it's the guy winning, right? Because then, you get out of there quicker and easier, right? But as a fan, and most fans, no one really, people would much rather see back and forth, the tide turning. And after I had watched sports, combat sports for about 5 years, which was when I was about 11, I finally said to myself, man, you know what? Most fights are not really going to be that way, because of the fact that one guy kind of figures the other guy out and realizes that he's better, and then just kind of keeps it in his wheelhouse from there, and either finishes the other guy or just basically, wins the fight. That's why in MMA there's so many 30-27 fights. Now, there are definitely 29-28 fights, but there's a lot of 30-27, 30-27, 30-27 where that happens. And so what is it in the fight that makes that happen? Does the guy on the losing end kind of just start to give up? Does he kind of like, not break, but does he kind of like realize that this guy's a better wrestler than me, this guy's a better striker than me, this isn't really going my way, I'm going to do the best I can, but what am I going to do to change this unless I do something crazy, and then I can come in and probably get knocked out or submitted? I mean, does that happen a lot? And is it a mental thing, or at the highest level does that not really happen, and even the guy that's losing is just keeping his confidence, but it just doesn't get anything? Is it more of that? Is it more that they mentally are a little bit kind of broken and just kind of figure this is what it is, or does that not really happen, but they just can't do anything to turn the tide?
So I think in a fight there's so many factors that could play into that, but one in particular that I think comes down to it a lot is, for example, say you have guy A who's 12-0 versus guy B who's like I don't know, 8-2 or 8-3.
Right.
Let's say they fight. You expect the 12-0 guy to come out on top, but it all goes down to your experience. I feel like there's guys out there with not the best records, but have fought like just monsters their whole career. I feel like that conditions a fighter, better for those situations where, say, things aren't going right in the fight. They have that experience, that callus in their mind where, I've been here before. I can make these adjustments. Where, on the other hand, it might be the person's first time, because maybe they fought a bunch of people that, they were way better than.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, without a doubt. And how about coaching? That's another thing that's really interesting. Like, sometimes you see a fight, and I remember a fight a few months back with women where one woman was going up in weight on short notice to the featherweight class. You might remember this fight. And it was short notice. She had missed weight the previous week, and she was going up in weight against a bigger girl, and everything was going wrong. And her coach kept on kind of saying, come on, you look terrible. You're not doing anything. Get in there and do you fight. And then the next round was the same. And the next round he was saying kind of the same thing. You're doing nothing. Get in there and fight. Do this. I mean, I guess he was kind of telling her some things to do, but she couldn't do it. It's like she couldn't do it. And I think what a lot of people don't understand that have never trained is that if you're not as good as someone and you have to resort to trying some crazy shit, that's probably not going to work out either. You know what I mean? Like, you probably know if you're better than a guy and you're beating him, and no matter what he tries, it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden he says, all right, I'm just going to do a jump flying knee against Pat, or I'm going to come in and try to do like some, Imanari roll, you're going to probably smash the guy. So doing something crazy isn't really going to work either. Or should they do that? Or is there something, I mean, it's got to be a frustrating feeling if you're not as good as someone, or you're not as good as someone that night, and your coach is kind of yelling at you saying you're doing nothing. What is that feeling? I'm sure you haven't felt that, but what's going on in that dynamic? What is that? Why does that happen? And is there something a coach could do different, or what can a fighter do when something where they're just every round they're being beaten in all aspects of the fight? I know it's a lot of questions rolled into one, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think that everyone's different. Like, there's some people that respond better to positive feedback, like, oh, you're doing this good. Maybe we need a little bit more of this though. And then there's other people that need like a little bit of like a kick in the ass. Like, you got to do this, you got to do that. It all depends on the fighter. But if you're getting beat by somebody, I feel like you just gotta. I know it's a pretty basic answer, but just gotta try to take them out with whatever you can, like try to push the pace, try to hunt the finish if you're down on scorecards.
Right, just really go for it. I mean, should you try crazy stuff? I mean, can that ever work, or is that something that probably is not advisable? It seems like most fighters don't really ever try any crazy shit. I mean, a lot of times the commentators are saying, let me see some urgency, and then they really don't. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think maybe the person should try some desperate crazy stuff if it's not working?
Anything could happen in a fight, man. You're always one good strike or one good takedown, one good submission attempt from either turning the tides or finishing the fight. So why not go for it?
Absolutely. And with coaching, obviously good coaching is really important. It's probably not being given enough credit, but I guess one of the most important things with good coaching is strategy. Now, is a lot of strategy kind of laid out by the coaches before a fight, which is why maybe sometimes you don't hear a lot of it in between rounds? Or do you think we should be hearing a lot of coaches say exactly what they want? Sometimes you do, like saying, look, you're moving to your right too much, you got to stop it, start moving to your left. You're not stopping the takedown, you're not sprawling quick enough, I mean, should there be a lot more details on exactly what's going wrong? And if so, is a minute not a long enough time to do that? Or what do you think as far as good coaching? What would you like to see in every fighter's corner if they could have the best coaching?
So I think most of the coaching should be done before the fight, as far as knowing strategy, just the training is what I think is the most important part. But at the same time, in between rounds during the fight, a coach might call out like a number or a name, and that should give the fighter like a little light bulb should go off, like, oh, okay, let me go try that. You know what I'm saying? Because it should be something that's already trained and ingrained into the fighter's techniques. Absolutely
makes sense. How about adjustment? This is something that I think is really unique. It seems like only the better fighters or the better camps are able to really make adjustments if the first round didn't go their way. And I think a lot of people don't understand why it's not happening more. But tell me your thoughts on that. What is it that makes being able to make a serious adjustment after the first round so difficult? And why do you only seem to really see that with the better fighters and the better camps?
I think you see that with people that are more seasoned, have been in these kind of situations before, and people that have a higher fight IQ as far as knowing what to do. Like, for example, if this isn't working, let me try this. If that's not working, let me try this. Good example. One of my favorite fighters, Petr Yan.
Yeah.
He's like a master at studying his opponents during the fight and making those adjustments, even not even in between rounds, just in the middle, like the middle of the action. It's amazing to see, and I think that only comes with experience and time.
Makes sense, because it is difficult. It's difficult kind of when you've got a training strategy so much and you're in there under the fire, in the fire, you know, to be able to change what you're doing. Yeah, it's definitely, and that's something why I like the seasoned fighters. And I think sometimes older fighters are surprising people with victories because they're able to adjust in a fight, whereas the younger fighter really isn't. And so, you know, I like that. That's why I think there will always be some older fighters that keep on winning because they're just so seasoned. Like, look at that Jim Miller fight, man. I mean, I had a feeling that would happen, and I know that wasn't the best opponent in the world. It's kind of, and no disrespect to his opponent, but a guy making his UFC against Jim Miller, even if Jim Miller is 38 years old, is kind of a big ask. For sure. But the guy had a really good record and was young, but it just seemed kind of like the experience factor just played out. Jim was able to absolutely adjust to what this guy did and just, you know, kind of, you know, put him in a washing machine, a spin cycle, and, you know, eventually take him out.
I actually didn't see that fight, but yeah, I know Jim Miller has so many fights in the UFC. You know, that experience, you know, that's like that's a priceless tool right there, that kind of experience.
Without a doubt. Let me ask your opinion if I could, and I won't keep you too much longer, but I really appreciate your time, man, and really enjoyed talking to you. So, big fight coming up, and it was going to be Islam Makhachev against Beneil Dariush. We've interviewed Beneil many times, and we've interviewed Islam's coach, Javier Mendez, many times. And that was an amazing fight. I'm sure you'd agree that was going to be such an amazing fight. It's so unfortunate that Beneil got hurt. It's unfortunate that a lot of guys on their keyboards are going to try to talk trash and say, oh, Beneil didn't want that fight. I mean, you know, and Beneil is a very chill, spiritual, religious guy, so I'm sure he doesn't care. But to me, it's just so stupid that anyone would try to say Beneil or his camp didn't want that fight. I'm sure you agree with me on that, right?
Oh, I definitely agree. You know, everyone has an opinion. Everyone makes noise with their mouth, but you know, it is what it is. It's part of the sport, but you know, I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I think Islam Makhachev is going to be the next champion in that weight class.
Yeah,
he's on another level, man.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Bobby Green fight, though. For this fight to happen for Bobby Green, it makes me happy. Bobby Green is one of these veterans that it seems like the judges just don't like him. Literally, it looks like the judges, you know, look at him and say, you know, if it's a close fight, I'm making that dude the loser. It's just amazing how many fights and you know what the sad thing is, I was talking to my co-host and my producer about this, and I've noticed this ever since boxing. I really believe some of these judges look at a fight on who's the A side and who isn't. And I think that in the beginning, Bobby had a pretty good record. He always fought everyone tough, and then he was, you know, on the wrong end of some really close decisions. And then I really feel like judges look and say, here we have a guy who's, you know, 15-7 against a guy who's like 10-1. You know, let's have the guy 10-1 win the decision because it'll be better for the promotion, and then I can get more jobs judging. And it really makes me mad because I know not a single judge in the world would admit to that, but it seems to be too much of a coincidence. You know, it happens so much, right? And to me, Bobby Green could have a really good record. I would not be surprised if more than half of his losses could have been wins, you know. But, and sorry to not give you a chance to comment on that, but I know I see you nodding and I see you agree. So this is a guy who, no matter what he did, he was always like 3 or 4 fights away from a big fight. And even when he would win, they would tag a loss on his record, and he would still be 3 or 4 fights away from a big fight. He's 35 years old, I think. It must have looked possibly to him and his team like he just was never going to get that big fight. And all of a sudden, he gets it. Unfortunately, it's on 8 days' notice or 7 days' notice against a guy like Islam Makhachev, but I have a feeling they didn't even hesitate. And all of a sudden, Bobby Green has a chance. God bless him. I'm so happy he's going to get some money for sure. He fought 2 weeks ago, which I was also mentioning. Guys will fight huge fights on short notice, but I don't know that someone's ever fought 2 weeks earlier and then jumps into a fight with someone in the top 5. I gotta believe that's an unusual circumstance. But I do know that he's fresh after 2 weeks. And I was talking to a friend of mine, Eric the Viking Paulson from CSW, longtime coach and former Shuto champion. He felt even at 35 years old, 2 weeks notice is going to be fine. 2 weeks between his last fight is going to be fine. So gotta have your opinion. I know you stated already that Islam's going to be the next champion, so obviously that mentions who he thinks wins this fight. But what can Bobby do here? Could this extra motivation from this opportunity and just all the experience he has, he's going to be the best he can be. If you were in Bobby Green's corner, what can we do? What can Bobby do as far as to make this, give himself the best chance possible against Islam Makhachev?
So, I'm happy for him, man. It's a great opportunity, and that's a lot. That's a lot what the sport's about. When opportunity knocks, he'd be a fool not to answer.
Right.
I think if Bobby Green goes out there and fights his fight, he could beat him. That's a very tough fight. Even on a short notice, he still has a good chance to win.
Yeah, and he's got the striking, even though Makhachev is a better striker than Khabib, arguably, and he's comfortable. He did get caught that once, and Bobby is slick. My producer and co-host wrestled in Iowa in high school and junior high, not in college, but still, if you're even in grammar school in Iowa, right, you got some tough guys you're wrestling against. He suggested that maybe as a surprise, Bobby Green shoot for some takedowns. And I know that probably a bunch of people are going to say definitely not. And I still respect what my producer, his partners, and business partner says, but could that happen? And if so, would he try that from the beginning? What would you think he could do with something like that? Should he be really shooting or just faking a shot? Or could he possibly catch Islam and the team by surprise doing that? Could he get a takedown?
Definitely would be unexpected. And it's a different fight when you're fighting someone that is just trying to strike compared to someone that could strike and take you down. So it would definitely be surprising. Keep everyone on the edge of their seat. Hey, he sees the opportunity, why not?
Without a doubt, it's going to be exciting. And being that you were competing in that combat sambo, can you give us an explanation on how these guys from Dagestan, from Kazakhstan, from wherever, I forgot, Chechnya, what is it that makes some of these guys so damn good? Because if you really look at it, in your division, you got Zabit Magomed Sharapov. He's been hurt for a while, but I know he's a stud, just like yourself. And then you got all these other guys. You got Hamzat, you got Islam, you got Magomed Ankalaev. These dudes. How is it that these guys from the Eastern Bloc with that combat sambo are this good?
They started at a young age. It's like it's inbred in them. It runs in their family. They have great camps, great coaches, and it's all they do. Man, they practice every day, constant repetition, and when it comes time to fight, they're hungry. It comes down to hunger too. They want to be the best.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your upcoming fight, Gavin Tucker. What is it, April 20th? No, earlier, right?
April the 9th.
April 9th. So this is exciting. You're probably just starting camp for that, or have you already started?
Man, I've been training since like December.
Nice. So this is going to be two opponents in a row that will have Tucker in their name. The last one, Tucker Lutz, and now you got Gavin Tucker. Speaking about the Tucker Lutz fight, that was a good fight, man. I remember when I broke that down, and I break it down with a couple different people on our show and then one other show, and then a lot of people were thinking Tucker Lutz was going to come up and do something, and the guy was tough, but I think a lot of people also gave you the credit for just the the fortitude you were showing. And I just remember, that I did feel, you can go, because we keep all my videos up, I did feel that you were going to win that fight, out of your experience. But what did you feel in that fight? Did Tucker Lutz present everything you thought he would present? What was the same and what was different about that fight as compared to what you were expecting?
So I knew he was going to come with a lot of pressure, look to use punches. I thought he was going to kick more, like for the leg kicks. We were kind of expecting that, but he didn't kick as much as we expected. And, he has good hips, good wrestling background, but we believe in what we do, and we knew we could do it. And when it came time to do it, we just executed the game plan.
Absolutely. Was that Joe Rogan that talked to you after, or was that Felder, or who talked to you afterward in that fight?
It was Daniel Cormier.
That's right. Always great to have DC in there. And so you got Gavin Tucker here. Is Tucker off of that loss to Ige, or did he fight again since then?
I believe his last fight was the Ige fight.
Okay, so he got caught quick, and that was a fight that was either even money or Tucker might have even been favored. A lot of people were kind of comparing Tucker almost a little bit to your teammate Sean Brady before that fight. And then he came in and just got caught. Now, a lot of times a guy gets caught like that, he can come back and get right back on his winning streak. I think, a lot of people don't know that getting caught isn't the same as getting like a sustained beatdown for 3 rounds where you just get beaten in every aspect of the game, right? It's almost like a little bit easier to possibly get over. You just pretty much can say, I just got caught. But am I right in that probably a guy like Tucker off of that fight is just going to be coming in kind of angry? I mean, could you imagine, would you, if that, where all of a sudden you're on this great win streak and you go in there and just get caught like that? Are you going to come in really kind of saying, man, I need to get on the win streak. I'm going to go out and try to smash this guy next. Is that what you would feel? And what do you think he's feeling?
Not exactly, because I feel like if you let your emotions get the best of you, it'll be your downfall. And, I don't know what's going on in his head. I know I would want to get right back in, get back on a streak. But, we'll see April 9th.
Absolutely. Do you think it would make him more anxious in the beginning to try to just immediately go out there? In fact, that's a good question I had. If you get caught like that, you probably don't want to walk in and get caught again. But then again, so you could come out there and be extra cautious, but then you could also just be really determined. I know that when I competed on a really low level in jiu-jitsu, and I was almost always just competing in my school. Once in a blue moon, I'd compete against another school. And I remember whenever I would, my first thought, because I knew, I was already older. I wasn't going to really try to make any sort of jiu-jitsu career in Masters 2, Masters 3, anything like that. But so I remember thinking, what I don't want is to get caught and submitted right away. And I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to get caught and subbed right away. I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to beat this guy. I know I can, but my first thought is I'm not going to get caught right away, and I'm not going to do anything stupid to get caught right away. Once the first 30 seconds would go by, or a minute or so, I would go, okay, now I'm going to try to play, try to impose my game. But I definitely am not getting caught right away. Do you think that could stick in a fighter's head a little bit, who's caught right away? Or do you think they would do the opposite? Or what would you think?
I think I think every fighter doesn't want to get caught,
right, right.
Away. So that's why you see, I feel like a lot of studying, you see that feeling out process a lot in fights.
Yes.
And that's why.
Makes sense. So this should be a good and exciting fight. How does he compare with guys that you've competed with and guys that you've trained with, would you say?
He's tough. He's very well rounded. But I'm coming in to win. I don't care, how much experience he has, any of that stuff. I'm coming in to win.
Absolutely. And where are you ranked right now? I know it varies because there's 3 or 4 ranking bodies, but are you 15 or 12 or 10 or what?
I actually, to be honest with you, I have no idea.
You should be. You definitely should be top 20, possibly even top 10. Although you can look back on past videos of my show. My producer will nod his head here. When we talk about which division I personally have felt is the most stacked, I never shift from UFC featherweight division. Because look at all the guys there, and I'm sure you're glad to be part of that division. But when you got Volkanovski, you got Max Holloway, you got when Zabit's not injured, Zabit, you got Yair, you got Korean Zombie, you got Josh Emmett, so many people in there. But still, I believe that with your wins, you're really close. Off of a win over Gavin Tucker, and I know you're not looking past him, would you call anyone out, you think? Do you think you might want to see one of these top 10 guys?
Right now, my vision's so set on that next fight that I'm not even thinking past that.
Makes sense. I respect that. Any exciting fights with your teammates coming up, or just fights that you're really excited to watch?
One coming up, it's gonna be after my fight in May. Andre Petrosky fights, forget his first name, but Maximov. I think he's.
Oh yeah, Nick Maximov, yeah. the Diaz student.
Yes. Yep. That's him.
That should be a good fight. Now, are you guys ever able to corner for each other, or does everyone pretty much want to have actually just their coaches in their corner?
If we can, yes. But most of the time, it's just the coaches.
Makes sense. But that should be a really good fight. So, man, yeah. I tell you, there's just a lot of great action coming up, man. And final question, any goals for your career when you start to get an even bigger platform and you start to make more money? Would you want to, get involved in any business ventures? Would you eventually want to have your own gym, or what are your goals for when you become even more successful with this fighting career?
Well, obviously the career is number one priority.
Of course.
I want to be a world champion, but down the road, I don't know, maybe like a gym, down the road, maybe move down south to Florida or something, get a fishing boat, who knows.
Love that. Would you ever want to be like a commentator or a trainer for fighters, like James Krause over at Glory? He's becoming like a coach as well as a fighter, and then there's jobs as a commentator, analyst. Does any of that stuff appeal to you?
Yeah, that would be that'd be a great opportunity. That's something that's possible in the future. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I can see you doing that. And I know I said last question, but let's just go a final question. What can you tell a guy coming up, let's say, who's an amateur now or just beginning his MMA career as a pro? What can you tell a guy to do that would give him the best chance to have the success that you have?
Get as much experience as possible, get as well-rounded as possible, and embrace the journey. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. You can't get deterred by the downs, and you can't, let it get to your head when things are going good.
I like that. And how about, sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear that last part.
Just keep balance.
Makes sense. And anything not to do that some fighters might be doing?
Live a healthy lifestyle. Hang around people that are gonna be good for what you want to do. Don't hang around the wrong crowds. Always keep a really good work ethic, and always be a student. Never think you know everything. Never let your ego get too big.
Like that. Great advice, man. Really appreciate it. What's the best social media for people to support you, Pat?
Patrick Sabatini, MMA.
Excellent. And that's everywhere. Are you more on Instagram, more on Facebook, more on Twitter?
More on Instagram. Fantastic.
Pat Sabatini, really appreciate you, man. As mentioned, been a fan of yours for a while, watching you win and just be impressive. And, I'm from Michigan, which is like Midwest/East Coast. Always support my East Coast brothers from over there in Pennsylvania. Philly, tough you guys are, man. And can't wait to see you do it on April 9th. Love to have you back down the line to talk again.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at the Hannibal TV for more live streams and videos. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Hannibal TV.